Deep right field. Down the line it goes. Castellanos is out of room. It's out of room. Runner goes. 3-2 pitch hit down the line. Is it fair? It is a fair ball. Into the corner. Off and running. Chu. Yu Chang around third. He's going to score easily. And into second. Hit hard. Hit deep. Up and out. Goes Amed Rosario. And there's a fly ball. Left field. It's deep. It's up. It's gone to the porch. Deep left center field, it is gone to Souvenir City.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Guardians of the CLE podcast. I am your host, Max Goldstein, joined as always by my co-host, Mel Kirby. And guys, we finally made it. The lockout has ended. If you can't hear or see the smile on my face, oh, wow. Mel and I are both relieved. I'm sure all of you listeners and you viewers, are relieved as well. Fans around the league. I mean, we're all pumped and we're all psyched to get ready to go. We're finally back into it. But tonight we're just going to cover the recent moves made by the Guardians. We're going to cover some things seen around the league and talk about the end of the MLB lockout, which Mel and I have both been waiting so long for. So without further ado, Mel, let's lead into tonight's conversation. What do we got?
I'm just so excited that we're actually finally able to talk baseball on our baseball podcast. You know, I will say over these 100 days, I learned a lot more about the CBA and labor negotiations than I ever wanted to. But I feel like it makes this season, like I'm going to appreciate it so much more because honestly, I didn't think we would have much of a season this year, but lots of action, players officially, the report date was Sunday the 13th. So all the guys are showing up to Goodyear, getting their work in, and that's the same across the majors. And, it didn't start as quickly as we thought it might with the signings and the trades. But over the weekend, it really started to take off. And I know the Guardians aren't as active thus far as many of us, including myself, would have liked them to be. I know we're going to talk about it, but like Matt Olson got traded to the Braves today and Jesse Winker got traded to the Mariners. Those were, as we've discussed on past episodes of the podcast, those were two of like my top trade targets I would have loved for them to go get. But as we saw, the Braves sent over one heck of a package to get Matt Olson. That almost certainly would have cost us Brian Rocchio, Daniel Espino. Maybe they wanted George Valera, which for me, I think just kind of looking back and analyzing some of these deals and, looking at these top prospects, I know you got to give up talent to get good major league talent back. But at this point, my only untouchable guy is George Valera, just simply because the dude's going to be a star. He already has star power and we have no outfield depth in our system. It would suck to lose Rocchio and Espino, don't get me wrong, but at least we have depth at starting pitching and in middle infield, and this organization's never going to stop churning out shortstops and starting pitchers. So I could understand letting those guys go, but for me, George Valera is a non-starter, but I keep telling people to be patient. The Guardians are a team that like to sit back and kind of wait and let the dust settle before they make any major moves. A lot of times they like to settle their arbitration cases, which I know this season they could carry over into the season this year just because of how rushed everything is. But I tell people, as presently constructed, this 40-man roster is not ready to take the field. We're missing arms in the bullpen. We do not have enough outfielders. Hedges is like our only real catcher who's caught major league innings. So they definitely have moves to make. And I know it's frustrating seeing other teams improve while we're kind of standing pat for the moment. But, Chris Antonetti had a press conference today where he talked about, they haven't been able to really have those extension talks yet with Shane Bieber and Jose Ramirez, just simply because the free agent and the trade market is so hot right now. So he's in it. He's active. Best believe he's working. And, like I keep saying, he's never really proven us wrong. In the past, he's shown he's a mastermind when it comes to trades and maximizing these valuable assets we have. So I don't know, Max, what do you make of this slow start for the Guardians so far?
I would say, look, it is what it is right now. Everybody just needs to enjoy the excitement of everything coming back. Chris Antonetti, I have full faith in him to, make some maneuvers over the next couple weeks before we see that opening day roster. But I'm really just more excited that everything's back. Look, I'll start worrying about what our moves are going to be as the weeks go on. But right now, we've seen a couple guys that we were sort of targeting fly off the market. That's going to happen, especially with, different Cleveland organizations that we have. We're not the most, spend happy sort of organization franchise. So this is kind of what I expected. All those big names are going to be flying off the lists and finding new homes. We're just going to have to really, like you were saying before, work on that depth. We have to add some, middle infielders here, outfielders as well. And you mentioned that catcher position, but yeah, back to what I was saying. I'm just so pumped. I mean, right now I just looked up the spring training schedule. So as far as I know, if things don't change yet again, the Guardians will be taking the field for the first time in spring training against the Cincinnati Reds here this upcoming Friday. So
Talk about a fire sale with the Cincinnati Reds.
yeah, man, the Cincinnati Reds did an overhaul recently, so I'm sure that those young guys that are going to take the field are really going to be giving it their best. But it's so relieving to know that we're going to have Guardians baseball back. And those guys, if anybody's been following their page on Instagram, some Twitter feed as well, you've been seeing them getting some work. Cal Quantrill was thrown in the bullpen today. You had Austin Hedges doing some work, some workouts for the catcher position as well. But
Jose Ramirez hit a double off Logan Allen down the left field line.
Logan Allen got some work to do, but so does everybody else when it comes to a lot of people have work to do facing Jose Ramirez. But bottom line, Mel, I'm just so pumped. Everything's back. It takes so much pressure off my shoulders that was just sitting there for months.
It's kind of surprising too to see how some of these moves have kind of transpired so far. Like I'm honestly shocked that the Braves aren't bringing Freddie Freeman back. Like Freddie Freeman is the Atlanta Braves. He spent his whole career there, came up through their minor league system. And, a tweet from Joel Sherman earlier today actually said that the Braves didn't even inform Freddie Freeman or his agent ahead of time that they were making that deal for Matt Olson. And it's just crazy coming off a World Series when I didn't, I'd see people tossing ideas around of him to the Dodgers or Yankees. And I didn't see a way where that was going to happen. So that, that kind of surprises me. It's going to be interesting now to see where Freddie Freeman lands up. And it's interesting because a lot of these big name guys are still kind of, lurking around out there. You got Correa, who's reportedly talking to Houston again. Trevor Story's still out there, who the Guardians have, whether it was accidentally or otherwise, they've been linked to Trevor Story. And then you got like Nick Castellanos still, Chris Bryant. So there's still some big name guys out there that I'm expecting the trade market to kind of get even a little bit more intense after some of these guys find their new homes. But we'll just see how this plays out. It's been a really exciting few days of finally hearing about some baseball moves.
Yeah,
it's been refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, our phones have been going nonstop. The different applications, you got Bleacher Report, Instagram, Twitter, everything is just on fire right now. And I wouldn't want it any other way. I mean, it's kind of like maybe this was all worth it. We had nightmares.
Now that we're through it.
Right. And now that we're through it and we're still going to have a 162 game season. I thought, the first couple of weeks of baseball were going to be canceled, possibly even the first month. So to have that full season, to watch the free agency market and the trade market just blast off right now, as baseball fans, what more do you want? This is the sport coming back with a force. So,
and the jerseys are out now. The new Guardians jerseys are in the team shop. I think you have to wait to get them online. I'm sorry I got your hopes up, Max. I know I shared it with you and I thought you could hop online and order it, but it's in person right now. But the authentic jerseys are finally revealing themselves now that this lockout's over.
And guys, they look fresh.
They look good.
A lot of people had some worries about the rebranding and the new name for the franchise, but Man, these are slick jerseys.
This is even growing on me.
Right. I
This
love
is even growing on me.
yeah, I love the especially the red jersey with that blue print with the Guardians. That's fire right there.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
like you were just saying, that even the logo is growing on me. I think it might just be that we were all in a bad mood for the
Yeah.
last couple of weeks, and now anything that we're seeing is just like, I'll take it. So that's where I'm at.
There was nothing better than last week. I'm like looking at the Guardians Twitter and Instagram, and I'm seeing Jose Ramirez strutting through the parking lot heading into Goodyear. And I'm
Yeah,
like, we are back. The GOAT has been spotted. Like, let's get to work.
pop of the glove.
We've seen all these guys working out on their own. We've been updating you on what they've been doing all off season, and I'm just so excited to finally see them on the field. That excitement that they're going to bring. And like I said, this roster, I mean, they've made a couple minor moves we should mention. Like Luke Maley, the catcher, they signed him for 900,000. He's a depth piece. He's going to make 900,000 if he makes the 40-man roster. So they just started off with a depth piece. And Carlos Vargas, the young pitcher who was added to the 40-man roster before the lockout, he's going to be transferred to the 60-day injured list. He's coming off Tommy John surgery. He wasn't expected to be ready until about midseason anyways. But another catcher, David Fry, was brought over from the Brewers to complete that JC Mejia deal. So they kind of closed the door on that trade. Again, I think too, like one of these guys is basically replacing Ryan Lavarnway in AAA. He was kind of that, journeyman kind of veteran catcher that we had at AAA who'd be ready to go when we had all our catching injuries. So I'm not looking too much into that yet. Like you said, I'm not going to start panicking yet. They got plenty of times. I would expect something to go down this week though before they take the field on Friday. I don't think that's a super hot take. I do think they get something pretty significant done here over the next couple of days, just from what I'm hearing. And they have been linked to Jack Peterson, so Jack Peterson may be bringing his pearls over to Cleveland, which wouldn't be a huge pickup, but I'm fine with that as like a secondary guy. He can't be like your main transaction of the offseason, in my opinion, just because he's almost kind of like more of a platoon guy at this point. But he possesses that power, and I think he would be a pleasant sight to see over, an Oscar Mercado or a Bradley Zimmer every single day. So we'll see what transpires with that, but still many good things still to come here over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and it will come, guys. Don't worry about it. Chris Antonetti, they didn't go through this lockout for nothing, and I'm sure, hopefully Rob Manfred isn't listening in on the podcast. I doubt he is, but I'm sure Chris Antonetti and GMs around the league were just working those burner phones. There's no way that all of this could have been done in the last 100 hours.
They were,
Yeah,
they were
right.
talking.
So, I mean, there have been talks, I'm sure, and now that it's fully, out in the open and legal to do so, things are going to be happening, and it's just a game of wait and see right now. But even within our own division, there have been moves made. I think most recently the Chicago White Sox signed Joe Kelly, so they strengthened up that back end of the bullpen. Right. And that's something that we're definitely going to be addressing, I'm sure, that back end of the bullpen. Any news on who we could be targeting, Mel?
Yeah, and then before I get into that, I think another interesting thing too is like what are the Twins doing? Are they rebuilding? Are they retooling? They traded for Sonny Gray. I like that move. Then they got rid of Josh Donaldson, which wasn't a bad move. They got to shed that contract. The Yankees took on he's owed like $50 million still over the next couple years. So they were kind of able to shed that payroll with that big Byron Buxton deal set to kick in. But I think they're gonna be interesting. They're probably gonna be towards the bottom of the division if I would guess. But yeah, now that you talk about what we could still do realistically. So today Ken Rosenthal actually called the Guardians a team to watch out for in a lot of these trades, and I know a couple haven't went our way so far. I understand that. But with the surplus of young talent that we have, not only on the 40-man roster, but coming up through the ranks, we got plenty of talent that other teams would love to have. And we're still looking for those corner outfield spots. I would definitely say to upgrade first base or, first base isn't really a position you want to platoon at, but I just don't really trust Bobby Bradley against lefties right now. So I would look to add another bat at first base, and then obviously the bullpen. If we could pick up an actual serviceable offensive catcher, that would even be a win. But I think if we can upgrade these corner spots, it's going to make the lack of offensive production out of the catcher's spot a little less noticeable. So some names I'm still targeting. Free agent wise, I think Michael Conforto is still the guy who would fit perfectly in this lineup. I would love seeing him in right field. And that could still happen. I haven't heard too much chatter from people in the know yet surrounding Conforto. But again, I'm not sure if it's one of those things where the Nick Castellanos, Chris Bryant dominoes kind of have to fall first to set that market for these second tier guys that the Guardians might be going after. But like we mentioned, they've been linked to Jack Peterson already. That's no surprise. You got guys like Jorge Soler from the Braves. He could be a guy they could look at. And then a really interesting guy is Tommy Pham from the Padres. I've talked about him kind of in depth on a past episode of the podcast, but he'd be another serviceable bat out in the outfield. And then you got Kyle Schwarber, who he's probably, he's going to get a pretty decent deal, probably 10, 12 million a year at least. But as a 1 to 2, year deal, I think that's manageable. And he would bring a ton of power and a great eye at the plate. Out of that left field spot, even he's versatile. He can kind of play left field, DH. You can, move him around a little bit, but trade wise, the big guns, the kind of maybe unrealistic guns, but maybe not so unrealistic because we all thought Matt Olson, Jesse Winker could be guys that they could swing a deal for a little more easily. But there's still Brian Reynolds out there from the Pirates. They're awesome all-star center fielder. He's been drawing a lot of interest from the Miami Marlins as of late. But don't be surprised to hear the Guardians link to him if he really is as available as, we're starting to hear. Kettle Marte from the Diamondbacks. He's another outfielder. Not quite sure if he's 100% available, along with Cedric Mullins from Baltimore. Mullins has always been my guy to go get. He kind of does it all. He had 9 straight hits against the Guardians last year when the team was out in Baltimore, and I think that caught the eye of a lot of people within the Guardians. Some more realistic ones, probably Jeff McNeil from the Mets and Josh Bell. They're guys who could come in and, provide a serviceable bat. That's pretty much what the Guardians are going to be going after here. But kind of I don't know, a guy I would like to see them kind of make a move for. I know it's difficult to trade within the division, but I would love to see Andrew Benintendi. He really, really bounced back coming over from Boston and, going over with the Royals. So I think he could be a guy that could be really interesting. Again, I'm not sure if they could swing it within the division, but, that would be a bat I would love to see at the top of this lineup. What do you think about any of those?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through these change, by the minute, by the hour, but I'm going through the free agent list right now. Of all the guys that are still unsigned, you mentioned, Michael Conforto, but also guys like Anthony Rizzo. We've had pipe dreams in the past, right? He can be sort of that right field / first base combo. And he would be a pretty penny. He wouldn't be cheap, but that would definitely be a player that could be game changing, right?
I could get with that for sure.
Right. And then you have guys like you mentioned, like Kyle Schwarber still on here. But when it comes to arms, I see guys on here like Danny Duffy from the Dodgers and Zach Greinke on Houston, Michael Pineda, like you were just saying, not trading within the division. I know we're not really in need for starters, but to have, some of these guys out here, it's kind of reassuring that, all of these hot names on free agency, they're not exactly flying off the shelves. You have had that whole fire sale with the Reds, and I know that I'm blanking right now. The Braves are sort of unloading right now as well, but the time's going to come to where we get these signings and where we make moves. And it's just, a matter of what Chris Antonetti's genius is going to be when it comes to our budget, when it comes to the depth, giving up, little to, if any, of our major prospects. I'm just so excited to see what goes down.
Yeah, I would have loved to see Ottavino, who the relief pitcher who ended up signing with the Mets. He was a guy I was kind of hoping would linger around a little bit longer, but the two guys I've mentioned, Chafin and Tapera, Chafin's from the left and Tapera's from the right. I think they'd be awesome additions to this bullpen. Tapera was a little bit up and down. He struggled when he first went over to the White Sox from the Cubs, but as I've went into detail with in the past, I think overall he's got solid numbers, and I think he could be a solid like seventh inning guy. Before hopefully Karinchak and then Clase at the end, and they still got Anthony Gose out there, but there's no surprise there. They got to add a couple arms to that bullpen, and hey, even you mentioned some of those depth starting pitching pieces that are
Right.
still out there. If they pick up a guy for cheap, kind of, those veteran 1-year deals they like to do, prove them deals. Maybe they could afford to unload a guy like Logan T. Allen or Cody Morris, if it meant getting a guy like Brian Reynolds or Cedric Mullins or Kettle Marte, someone, Jeff McNeil, even some of these guys that can come in and help this major league lineup right away. Because we know we have all this talent, but there's only you can only play one shortstop at a time. You can only play one left fielder. We got all these guys, and at some point you're going to have to unload some of these guys, or you're going to risk losing them either in the Rule 5 draft, or they're going to end up leaving when they're free agents. So we want to make sure we maximize their value. But as you've mentioned, I know Antonetti's going to be real smart about it, and he's never going to jeopardize the future to put a team right now. That's the thing about the Guardians, is they like to keep it, real steady. They like to be competitive. They like to be within striking distance of contention. And I think we can all appreciate that. And, we can look back at the Mike Clevenger, the Trevor Bauer. We can look back at these deals and see the returns that Antonetti's been able to get. And you get guys back like Cal Quantrill and Josh Naylor, and Joey Cantillo. We get these guys back who now we're looking at as top guys coming through our system, or in terms of Quantrill and Naylor, guys that have produced for us at the major league level. So you may be unloading a guy, but it's like, what are we getting back that's going to make this make sense for us? So I think that's kind of what they're going back and forth with now, just trying to find that right deal for now and for the future.
Yeah, I like how you touched on it, how Antonetti never puts all of his eggs in one basket. Now, you might agree with me on this. I didn't think we were a World Series team headed into the 2016 season.
It was supposed to be 17.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were, we were actually ahead of the curve in that regard. And, this is where that genius is kind of overlooked, where we make a trade and it's one of our premier players, and you see prospects names, you don't know anything about them, right? But as they work their way through the ranks, 3, 4, 5 years later, that can be your next all-star. And that's sort of the way that this organization is run, where, like you said, we're never all in a year. We're always competitive. And for the better part of the last 10 years, that's exactly what we've been. We made it to a World Series. We've made it to multiple different playoff series. We've gone to we've hosted an all-star game as well. So clearly, the mark is made in the majors by the Cleveland Indians and Guardians. So I expect nothing less. I expect a calm and composed sort of next couple weeks for the front office for Cleveland, and I expect nothing less other than reaping teams for their prospects and really gaining attributes and players that we never thought could be possible by just throwing away one player here and there.
It's going to be interesting too to see if they get this kind of infusion of cash from David Blitzer, if this is
Right.
finalized, and if they're going to have that to kind of work with as well, to kind of really give fans something to be excited about, heading into this rebrand and this first season as the Guardians. Obviously, as we know, there's a lot of fans who are upset with the name change. They don't want to let Chief Wahoo and the Indians go, and I'm sure it's in the back of their minds. They have marketing people, they got PR people. They know, they've taken some bad press for this, even though in my opinion, it was the right thing to do. It was the right time to do it. And, I think they're going to want to make some significant moves, not just these Luke Maley's for $900,000. They know nobody's excited about that, but one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to start doubting Chris Antonetti now, because he's a mastermind. He's working. It's just about finding that right deal, like you mentioned. But also, how good has it been to see Josh Naylor back out, smiling at Goodyear, putting in work? He looks great. He's moving good.
Yeah, you literally read my mind. That's what I wanted to transition into. It is so awesome to see our players, smiling and having a great time, throwing the ball around a little bit, cracking some jokes with each other, right? And then Josh Naylor took some BP this past week. He looks pretty good, man. He looks like he hasn't really missed a step. If anything, he's gained some mechanics out of this injury.
Yeah, he was saying he had an interview with Mandy Bell, the beat writer, and he was telling her, when he was kind of bedridden after his surgery, that he had his parents come over and they were throwing him socks to kind of keep him fresh. He's talking about how his mom had a nasty change up, but his dad had better stuff, and it was just a really lighthearted, fun interview, because it kind of started dark. He said when he felt that leg plant and his ankle snap, that he felt that all the way up into his throat, and he really thought his career was over. So for 9 months later, for him to already be back out there taking BP, active out there with the guys, like, that's super exciting. And we always talk on this podcast, and I know a lot of people have hopped off the Josh Naylor bandwagon, and I know we're like driving the train out of the station on that. We both love Josh Naylor, and
Right.
It's that intangible stuff, and we're seeing it already. It's that smile, it's that energy, he brings to the clubhouse, and that grit he brings on the field. And I think that was so missed last year. And, I'm hoping that leg will hold up. Well, he can still play some right field for us. We know we need the bats out there, but, it's just nice to see him progressing.
Yeah, it's a story that any major leaguer can appreciate, let alone all the different fans throughout the league. What happened to him was devastating, and to see him bounce back and be able to compete again, we'll see how he does this season. But just the fact that he's going to be suiting up and at Progressive Field on a regular basis, that's priority number one, and that's taken care of. So that's awesome to see. But another guy that I've seen putting in the work is Cal Quantrill. And there was this video of, from the view of behind the catcher, you could say that, umpire's view, his stuff is looking nasty. And it is, wow. I really can't even contain my excitement. I'm at a loss for words. Like, we're back.
Yeah.
And this is
Class
just
A's throwing gas in the bullpen next to him. They could flood my timeline with those videos all day long.
All day.
Nothing like the crack of the bat, when spring training starts. And it's been so missed. And even seeing, Tito back up at the podium today talking with reporters, like, he's feeling better than ever heading into year 10. So it's, this is exciting. It's exciting times. And, I can't wait to see what we're talking about on the podcast next week, to see, if they did, bite the bullet on any of these guys we're talking about.
Yeah, 100%. And if any of you listeners, viewers have any doubt in Chris Antonetti, you should have faith in Terry Francona, because he's still the manager of this team. He still has much more of a say than all of us know about who's going to be playing for his roster when the season starts. But I mean, yeah, to have him back, how nice is it to have Terry up there smiling, laughing? Andre Knott, I can't wait for his interactions throughout the season. I know we're all missing it, but yeah, we're back, everybody. Baseball's back, and we couldn't be more excited. But wanted to thank everybody for tuning in for this episode. Oh man, I can't even speak. I'm just so pumped up about the season. But next week, I'm sure we're gonna have some more things to cover when it comes to trades and free agency, around the league, as well as our Cleveland Guardians. But like I was saying,
game recaps.
Yeah,
game recaps.
Friday, mark it off on your calendars. Cleveland Guardians versus Cincinnati Reds in Goodyear, Arizona. Yeah, can't wait, everybody. And thank you so much for listening. All of your listening and your viewership, it's going to come to fruition once we have some actual content to talk about. So really appreciate everybody that tags along every week. But thank you so much. I'm going to pass it off to my co-host Mel here to take us away and sign us off.
Yeah, we could not be more excited to finally be bringing you baseball content, get to talk about the players and the battles that are going to take place here in spring training. It's going to be a lot of fun, and make sure you don't miss any of the spring training action. Make sure you give us a follow on Twitter at MaxwellG24 and at Mellow_NIE91. Head over to BelieveLandMediaLLC.com for all our written content. You can find all of our podcast episodes for all the major sports. And make sure you like, rate, review, and subscribe. We're on YouTube and all major podcast platforms. Drop us that 5-star review. Leave a comment if you could. Your viewership means everything to us. And, I'm just glad we're talking about real baseball again. So until next week, stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy some baseball.